2018 is shaping up to be a big year politically, from midterm elections to high-profile court cases. In Texas this week, I sit down with Ross Ramsey, the executive editor of the Texas Tribune, to discuss the races and issues to watch. How you doing today?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you. Ross Ramsey is the executive editor of the Texas Tribune, a nonpartisan political media organization. Their goal is to inform and educate Texans, so we sat down to discuss the races and issues to watch this year. 2018 is going to be a big political year in Texas.
It's going to be a really big year. The whole ballot is full. The Democrats showed up and put candidates in most of the statewide races. There was a question about that for a while. There's a race at the top of the ballot that's going to be interesting. Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, is up for his first re-election. He was a long shot in 2012. Nobody thought Ted Cruz could beat David Dewhurst, but he did. So, you start the conversation by saying his Democratic opponent will probably be Beto O'Rourke, a congressman from El Paso. And he's a long shot candidate. So maybe you get what you got 6 years ago. And maybe the Democrats are hoping he's the guy who can break the Republican hold on statewide office in Texas. That Republicans haven't lost a statewide election since 1994. So that's the top of the ballot. And then you go down, Governor Greg Abbott looks like he's in pretty good shape, particularly after Hurricane Harvey. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has a serious but unknown candidate against him in the Republican primary. The Republican primary and the Democratic primary are very close to us. They're the earliest primaries in the United States. They are held on March 6th. The early voting starts on February 20th. So there's a very short fuse on that. And then as you go down through the ballots, there are 8 open seats in Congress, which is really unusual.
The State House could also see some changes.
The Senate looks a little bit more stable. The redistricting maps are pretty solid. 3 senators have serious Republican primaries. Kel Seliger of Amarillo, Craig Estes of Wichita Falls, and Bob Hall of Edgewood, which is up to the east of Dallas. And then you get into the Texas House, 150 members, probably a dozen seats maybe will be in play in those elections. So there's a lot going on.
Are there any of those elections, any of those races that you find particularly interesting?
There are a lot of them. A lot of them are up in the Dallas area. And there's a couple of things that are big things going on in Texas politics right now. One of them is inside the Republican Party, there are 2 very strong factions that are battling for control of the Republican Party. And they were personified during the legislative session in 2017 by House Speaker Joe Straus, kind of an establishment Republican, sort of the kind of Republican you grew up with, and Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, who's more of a social conservative and a movement conservative, and a very, he's pushing social issues and other things like that. Those 2 wings of the Republican Party are both very strong, and they're wrestling right now for control of the party. In the primaries, we'll see that going on. And then the Democrats are trying to claw their way back in Texas, and they've pinned some of their hopes on a piece of tradition that says first-term presidents don't have great midterm elections the first time. So they're hoping Donald Trump has a bad year and that everybody on his ticket has a bad year too.
When we think about the Austin area, what do you think about the seat that Donna Dukes currently holds?
That's a tough district. She's got a bunch of stuff going against her and some things going for her. Usually when you're charged with something, as Donna Dukes was, there's a moment when your future is uncertain, you look like you're in peril. If you have to run an election while you're facing charges or facing an indictment or anything like that, it's bad news. But if you're acquitted or get off the charges, as she did, then to some extent you've got it going for you. It sort of works in your behalf. You can say, this was a political prosecution. You've heard her say that. They were after me, they didn't get me, I'm here to fight for you. That becomes a pretty good rallying cry. So if you had asked me a couple of 3 months ago, how's Donna Dukes going to do, I would be sort of gloomy about it. But going forward, I think she's probably going to have a better run at this than she would have had the charges persisted, or certainly had she been convicted. That said, she's got to run against Cheryl Cole, and Cheryl is an experienced politician, knows that area, knows those people. I think that's going to be a very tough primary.
She also has another Democrat who, while he's a little bit unknown,
Right.
he is starting to get some traction with endorsements.
Chito Vela is working really, really hard in that race. I think if you were an incumbent and you attracted two relatively strong, for different reasons, opponents, you've got to say there's some trouble there. But I think that Dukes is probably in much better shape than she would have been had those charges still been pending or gone another way.
When Texas This Week continues, primary and midterm elections aren't the only things that could impact Texas politics in 2018. We talk about the pending court cases that could be resolved this year.